Good afternoon. Welcome to the meeting of the Mount Airy Rotary Club. If you all will stand, Van is going to lead us in our invocation. Dick Johnson is going to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance, and Eric Hodges in our four-way test.
Let's pray. Lord, we are grateful for the food on our table, and we acknowledge, Lord, those today who do not have food on the table. We are grateful for homes to live in, and we acknowledge those, Lord, that do not have a home. We are grateful for health care, and acknowledge those and remember those who do not have adequate health care. Lord, we are truly a blessed people, and as we are blessed, we realize that it's our responsibility and opportunity to help others. May we do that as individuals and as a Rotary Club Mount Airy. Bless now this food and nourish our bodies, strengthen us. In your name we pray.
Amen.
Please recite the pledge with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First,
Is it the truth?
second,
Is it fair to all concerned?
third,
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
and fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you. Thank you, Van, Dick, and Eric. We have some guests with us today. Ken, would you like to introduce your guests?
I'd like to introduce my son-in-law, Richard Bohart, and my granddaughter, Caitlin Bohart.
Welcome. All right. And do we have any other guests attending with us today? All right. In terms of birthdays, we have Derek Higgs, who has a birthday on the 30th, which is today. Happy birthday.
Oh, bring that check out.
This is not as big as Dick Johnson. It's up there.
Happy birthday. Thank you. And Sherry Darnell had a birthday, and she presented her check as well. Would you like to ring the bell? All right. Thank you. Happy birthday. Thank you. Come on up. Michael.
All right, so my birthday got overlooked 2 weeks ago.
Oh, no.
And I wasn't here last week to remind you. And I'm not this old, but I'm close. Do you have $5 back?
Happy birthday. I owe you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. In terms of club anniversaries, we have Nancy Dixon, who is 5 years. So happy anniversary, Nancy. In terms of wedding anniversaries, we have Miss Angel, whose anniversary will be on the 4th. So if you see her, wish her a happy wedding anniversary of 23 years. In terms of announcements, remember our district golf tournament. If you're interested in playing in that, that's going to be September 12th at 1 o'clock in Asheboro. If you're interested, let me know, and I'll be glad to provide some more information about that. We have our food drive that is currently ongoing. Lanice, would you like to mention that?
Real quick, food drive, July, August, September, right? Yeah.
Yep.
July, August, September food drive. You can bring your food either to Hampton Inn and drop it off, or Todd Phillips on 601, or Andy Drawn over off of Main Street, or you can bring it here to the club. It's probably easiest to bring it here to the club, and then I can take it or do whatever we need to do. But anyway, on Tuesdays. So far, we've collected 272 items for the month of July. And our top runner right now is Miss Angel, who donated 204 items. Oh, wow. So, you guys have to beat Miss Angel to win that 2-night gift certificate to the Hampton Inn and stay with us and have a delicious breakfast with smoothies, okay? So, in order to do that, you have to get 205 items
items in to be Miss Angel.
Yes. If we don't want to stay, we're not gonna have a monthly free breakfast.
It don't work like that. You can just come for a smoothie, but then you only get 2 smoothies, because that's your night stay.
Take rubber checks.
No, sir, not rubber.
Take good checks.
I take good paper checks, yes. Okay, and I'll make sure we buy enough items to get you over 204, okay?
Check won't be that big.
Oh. How big?
Items should be to, have to go for items.
I mean, just two, it has to be 200, it has to be 205 items. I just count each item individually. Yeah, if you bring it in a case, you can do it in a case, which is what Miss Angel did. She had like 4 cases of items, but it's just gotta be non-perishable items. And even if you get it in a case, I count each individual item. 4-pack is 4 items, okay? Okay, good? So I'm gonna get like 500 items next week, right?
Right.
Right, okay.
Thank you, Lenice.
Thank you.
Remember that there is a bike MS tour for multiple sclerosis. This is occurring September 28th and 29th. So if you're interested in helping, let me know and I can provide some more information about that. Our membership summit for Rotary is coming up on August 22nd. How many of us are expecting to attend that? So we have 3. So if any of you would like to attend, please do, especially if you're on the membership committee. This is a very beneficial meeting. It runs from around 9 o'clock to 3:30 at Sedgefield Country Club. And it's beneficial as to how to increase our membership within Rotary. So I know it'll be very educational, and if you're interested in attending, please let me know. Also, next week, our district governor will be attending our meeting and presenting the program. So I would ask that hopefully all of you can be here. If you see some of our members that are not, please ask them to come. We want to have a great attendance for that. If you have our Rotary shirt or a Rotary shirt, please wear that. I think that would be great. And also, we're going to have a meeting before our meeting with our board and our committee chairs to present information to the district governor. So he'll be here with the assistant governor as well. So I hope that you all will be attending for that. And just so you know, when we do introduce the district governor, we will stand and applaud when he is here next week. So that will be very good. His name is Randy Perkins, very personable, very nice guy. So I know that that'll be a great meeting next week. Any other announcements? All right. Any happy bucks? Marion.
Okay, so we had a global grants meeting yesterday that lasted 2 hours. And this time, Nancy's project, I've got to say, last time they wouldn't give her 1 penny from our district. She had to go to Tulsa. So this time I commented on the fact that her grant happened to be highlighted as one of the best grants in Uganda, that we had given her 0 money. Tulsa had given her 10,000, so they decided to give her 20,000.
Yay! Very good. Thank you. Irina.
I have a happy bug. My daughter was having an internship with United Nations, Copenhagen and Geneva. She was traveling to Prague, Ukraine and Morocco. So after 2.5 months of traveling, she safely landed in Mount Airy.
Oh. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Dan.
My daughter overloaded her with classes, this year with pre-med and business school. So she decided to have a gap year. She applied for a paid internship for her gap year to 35 places. And she came home, she was worried that she still had no offers for job. On Friday, she had interview with Prince of Netherlands. And she got paid job at the United Nations in Geneva, 6-month job.
Wow. Very nice. Congratulations. Van.
Can you talk that, man?
probably don't know. Many of you do know that for the last 9 months, I've been helping a church in our community out as their interim pastor. I'm happy that they've called a pastor, so I've only got 2 more Sundays. But now this past Sunday, I was gone. And I invited Nancy Dixon to come and speak about Surrey Medical Ministry. Folks, you've heard Nancy speak. You've never heard her preach. Oh my God. I'm trying to get Nancy to consider the same career in this because she did a beautiful job. And I mean, so if you want to, so I'm going to give this happy bucks for Nancy. And so if you would like to hear her message, and I really encourage you, go on Facebook to Piney Grove Baptist Church's page, and you can hear.
Wants more hits for
No. Nancy, I'll say publicly, it's probably one of the best messages I've heard in a while, including my own. So I'm serious, it was that good. It was that good because she talked about Surrey Medical Ministry in the context of my prayer was based on your sermon about our responsibility as those who have, helping those who haven't. It was beautiful. And so Nancy, you did a great job. And so I want y'all to go on Piney Grove's Facebook page. You can like it if you want to, that's okay. But listen to Nancy's message. It was
Thank you. Candace.
Thing like that. I'm just happy to be here and happy that the Bears are up there.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, Becky.
Okay, I've been waiting all summer to do this. I had 13 happy bucks because 13 weeks. I'm probably gonna cry. Again. Come on. Yes. Yeah. Wesley graduates boot camp from a fair solid on Friday. And we just love them. Okay.
Thank you.
We're gonna get that out. No, we're just really proud of him because he's gonna be in the reserves for the Marines. And so he did this summer, and he'll graduate, and his platoon is the honor platoon. And he's the second squad leader in the honor platoon, so he's gonna be on the front row as he shouts, so we're all excited. And then when he finishes, he goes to Camp Lejeune for 2 months, do his training, and then he'll probably come here with me during his off time when he comes home, and then he goes back to New Zealand, Wilmington in January. So he's just had a long, and he told me when I talked to him, he said, well, I found out after I got here that the Bravo company is a hardcore, full-time boot camp. Yeah. So he's had it rough, but they've done a good job. So
Thank you, Becky. Tom?
Mine is way lighter than any of those. But I have a happy buck that made me happy. Mary and I were on vacation. We stopped at an outlet mall. Mary had warned me that she was looking for shoes. I prepared for the worst. We walked into the outlet mall, Nike outlet mall, or the store. So we went walking in. Mary looked to the left, walked over, looked at these shoes, said, I wonder if they have them in my size. We were gone in 3 minutes. We never went into another store after that mall. She found what she, I think that's remarkable.
That's great. Thanks, Tom.
Did she have a fever?
I don't know what the problem was. But she solved my problem.
I'd like to go shopping this year. It'll take 3 minutes.
3 minutes was more.
We also have a guest that I didn't introduce earlier. It's Mr. Tom Joyce from the Mount Airy News. So welcome, Tom. We're glad that you're here with us. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn the program over to Eric.
All right.
Thank you. Well, I'm privileged to introduce today Johnny Shelton, Director of the Emergency Services, and his training officer, Dale Harold. And I think this flows perfectly from our speaker last week when Chief Dale Watson talked to us on several topics. One of them was drug abuse and opioids. And Johnny's bio here is about 10 pages long. So I saw him at Leon's this morning and asked him what he wanted me to say about him. He said as little as possible. So I'm not going to take up any of his time, and let's get Johnny up here. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for inviting me up here today. I want to talk about a problem that has accelerated in the last several years with us, and it's actually affected every aspect of every organization, community organization, families, problems in the communities, crime, everything that we have to do with. I'll have to say that probably 90% of what we do that's bad, for example, okay. 90% of what we do that's bad is contributed to drugs in our county now. It has grown to that degree. Meth and cocaine, they've been here a long time. That is a serious illegal substance, illicit drug that's been used for quite some time. It gives them that euphoria and feeling that they can do anything, and that goes along with a lot of the major crime that we have, the major thefts, the child abuse, the adult abuse, the murders, the serious accidents and things that we have of that nature. Those two have always been up there. But today I want to talk more about the opioid addiction that we've got in the county, along with other substances that they are using. Today, and I'm going to demonstrate that, and you have handouts at your table there that you can follow through as we go through these slides. But one thing I want to demonstrate to you today is not just one substance that they abuse anymore. They use several different ones, and there's most of the autopsies that to get a drug level on anyone, it requires an autopsy. So when we get the results back of the toxicologies on most of these individuals, it's not just one substance. It's at least 4 and 5 in some cases that they're abusing, and that can be everything from meth to cocaine, to benzodiazepines, to Neurontin, to sleep medication of any kind, Lyrica. Gabapentin is starting to be a big one. That's a seizure medication, and we see a lot of that now combined with all these different substances. So, as we move through this, it's not just one substance. These folks will do anything to give them that euphoria that they're after. If you can follow through with me on the first page, you'll see that we did like the last 3 years to show you where we were. And last year, we did 371 overdoses in the county. Now, that's not including what comes into the hospital emergency departments. If we looked at the total numbers of what we've seen over the year, you're talking about 800 to 1,000 people who overdose annually in Surry County if you take what's in the hospitals, what that we answer, and those at home we don't even know anything about. Because now that Narcan's come so available to all of these individuals, they can get by prescription. If they have any kind of addiction, they can take it home. Now we have what's called the Narcan parties. You go out and you drink alcohol and you choose a driver. Well, now with the drug addiction is who's going to give the Narcan if someone gets in trouble. And a lot of times that happens. A lot of what we see out there that has already been given before we reach a scene, I'd have to say probably, Dale, I think you'll agree with this, probably 1/3 of those have already been given Narcan before we ever get on scene. But if you look at these numbers, and you'll see that we started to have a decline in the death ratio. Well, that's because of the Narcan. It's so readily available. Before Narcan was so readily available to everybody, we had those higher rates of fatalities from the drug abuse in there. In 2017, there were 55 that died as a result of overdose. Prior to those years, it averaged somewhere around 30 to 32. From what we have this, we're up to 17 this year. We're probably going to keep that average of somewhere around 30 to 32 individuals. Now, if you'll turn to the next, we're on a system now called OD Maps. And OD Maps has become a very valuable tool and resource for our law enforcement, for all of our agencies that are actually dealing with the drug addiction throughout the county. if you'll see the little items or icon or symbols there that demonstrate what the different ones are when I show you the map, this indicates what's throughout the county. If you'll turn to the next page, that you'll see in 2018, this is the drug activity in the county, spread out through the county. So sure, in Mount Airy, Elkin, and Dobson, the Pilot Mountain areas, you're going to see the most significant areas in what drug addiction that we have that have been responded to by us or law enforcement. Though a lot of these numbers are not, a lot of the numbers that represent this are not in this map, and that's based on a lot of the people that we get, that we respond to, we don't find out that there's an overdose until they get to the hospital. They start doing their blood analysis and they find out that it's actually contributed to drugs. Or if we transfer them to Baptist or Forsyth or any of the other hospitals, a lot of times we won't find out that it was actually contributed to drugs. So if you'll turn to the next page, look where we are already in 2019. We're averaging an overdose a day, sometimes 2 overdoses a day in the county. And we're already up to 17 deaths. And the numbers of Narcan that we've given, you've already seen demonstrated in the first slide that we had. By the way, let me catch up to where we are here. Being able to represent this in a map has helped us to a large degree. I'll give you an example of how all of the agencies are working together now. For example, we have meetings now that include Partners Mental Health, Daymark, Social Services, the Health Department, all the law enforcement agencies, even hospice has even gotten into the game of dealing with overdose addiction and what the end results are. So I want to reassure you that all of us are working together to try to resolve this. The county has taken a stronger step in hiring an opioid director to help pull everybody together, because the one thing that we found with our meetings is everybody wants to solve this problem, but nobody's taking any strong effort toward bringing us all together to accomplish that. So that's what the opioid director was hired for, is to be the administrator and liaison to pull all of these different agencies together and find out what resources actually need to be made available. The one thing that we have found out moving forward is that there are no real resources once we identify who these individuals are. When we start looking for facilities or treatment centers for them to go to, there are none. And until that funding becomes available, those resources are not accessible to us to be able to get us from the door of, we've treated them with Narcan, we've identified that they have this addiction, this person may or may not want help. Once we get to that point, where are we going to send them? Well, when we start looking at bed counts that are throughout the triad, there absolutely are none. Daymart does a great service in coming out and evaluating these individuals with their crisis team. But then when they start looking for those facilities to be able to send them, there are none available. And then if you have something, there are 2 facilities, Lifespan and others, but you're talking $10,000 to get through the front door. These folks don't have that kind of money to do that. So there are a lot of issues as we move forward that need to be addressed to find resources available to actually solve the problem and where we need to go. Most of this is contributed to strong mental illness. A lot of it is. For example, with methamphetamine, if they started out with methamphetamine, only one time can get them addicted. Only 7% of the people who get addicted to methamphetamines after 2 years recover. Only 7%. It's terrible. Most of them take that track of moving off into something else. Well, the problem is when they moved over to opioids and other medications along with that, it's a sure death for them. So if we'll look at the substance abuse events that we have had, if you'll follow those years, I want you to look at the steady rise that we have in those incidents that occur in the county over a period of time. If you'll go to the next page, you look at how much Narcan has been given throughout those periods of years that we have. Now, what is the cost of that? A lot of people ask that question. You're talking about $40 an administration of that each time we give that. Now, we have trained all of our law enforcement agencies in administering Narcan now. And they're all doing a great and fantastic job doing that. We've trained all of our probation department in it. We just trained the park service at Pilot Knob. One of the reasons for that, a lot of these folks will buy their drugs out in the parking lot of a service station. They'll go in the bathroom and they'll overdose. Or they'll go to a Central Park. Or they'll go to some, even like some of the outlet stores. I'm not going to mention their names, but a lot of the outlet stores in Mount Airy, we'll find them in the bathroom of some of the outlet stores in Mount Airy where they've been out in the parking lot, bought the drugs, and then they'll go in there and either snort it or shoot it up in most cases. If we could, let's go to the next one. Now, when you look at the primary substance abuse categories, I want you to pay close attention to that. One thing that the county is still overlooking that is a very, very serious problem is alcoholism. Now, I want you to look at where we are with alcohol versus heroin. Substance abuse, period, is a problem. We've got all of these other different agents that we're dealing with, but, the nuts and bolts of this and what sticks right out in your face is we've still got a problem that's socially accepted, that's been there for years, that's almost equal to what we're dealing with that's killing all these folks, as opioids. And if you turn to the next page, you'll see that we break this down by gender and race, so you can kind of see where we are with that. And if you look at the national statistics, we actually are a little higher in one area than we are the other. And that'll be on the next page, so the percentage of ODs national versus Surrey County. We don't feel good about being the #1 county in the state for overdoses for our population. And we are. We're also #1 in hepatitis C for our population because of the IV drug use. Hepatitis B is extremely high in the county. HIV is extremely high in the county. Now, through education, we've also been able to identify out of those folks where we need to go with how to resolve the issues that they are confronted with recreational use. Everybody else is doing it. Why shouldn't we? The high schools, for example. When I sit down, and this is sad, when I sit down with the kids in the high school and I ask them, guys and girls, I want you to tell me, how often during the day do you get offered drugs? You know what the average was? Every day? 4 times a day.
Do what?
Get offered drugs. 4 times a day. Mm-hmm. Offered drugs 4 times a day. Now, in the high schools, even in the middle schools, the kids have access to it. Now, what are the school systems doing to help us with that? These guys are dynamic and helping us identify issues that we have within the school system and things that we can do to try to change that. They have done continuous education with the kids, continuous observation of the school systems. They're bringing the dogs in and letting them do routine checks in the schools a lot of time to see where it is. Because when I talk to the kids, it's accessible out in the parking lot, sometimes in the cafeteria, sometimes in the hallway, sometimes in the bathroom. When you talk to them directly, that's a lot of times that's where they can get access to it. But I want to reassure you 200% that the school systems are doing everything they can to identify this issue and what we all can do to work together to resolve it and keep it out of the school systems. Couldn't ask for any better cooperation from any of those agencies throughout the county. When you look, this next slide is a law enforcement blood draw. I want you to pay attention to that. We've gotten away from the breathalyzer as much as we have doing blood draws now because of all of the drug use in the county. Now, you know, you can go out there and have them blow in a breathalyzer, but that's not the problem. In most cases, they're also training the law enforcement in how to better identify those individuals who are on drugs and be able to combat that at the same time. What we try to do with EMS is we do those blood draws as a courtesy to law enforcement. And the reason being is we got to get those folks off the street. So I don't know, some of you may monitor some of the things we do. A lot of the citizens in the county have our frequencies now, but if you hear that blood draw, most of the time we meet Highway Patrol wherever they are. And or either they'll come to the station, we do that, and then they send that analysis off to the state to see what the levels are. Narcan administration, this gives you an example of who all is giving it throughout the county when you turn to the next page there. We have been very successful in working with all of our groups to be able to get those folks to be able to give the Narcan all across the county. There are some states that are refusing to do this and going to, you do 3 times and it's over. I think some of you've even seen some of the sheriff agencies in some of the northern states that have said, you know, 3 times you're out. We don't look at it that way. You know, we're talking about somebody's granddaughter, daughter, husband, wife, whoever that is. You know, we're going to have to do everything we can with that. There's a lot of opposition to that kind of direction from a lot of people, but as long as we can administer the Narcan and resuscitate someone, we're going to be doing that. The next page demonstrates to you what agencies give the Narcan. And as you can see, there's a huge amount of it that's actually given by the police department and the sheriff's office before we actually even get on scene. It has gotten to the point that we're actually considering training our law enforcement agencies how to use what we call a bag valve mask to assist their ventilations until we can get on the scene. Some of these medications are so heavy, and we're going to talk about, you know, fentanyl and heroin and carfentanil as we move through this, but a lot of those, depending on what they've been given or how much they've taken, and the way that they have administered it has to do with whether they can actually be resuscitated by Narcan and how much Narcan it may require. I want you to go to the next page, and I want you to look. I brought some examples of what an autopsy toxicology looks like. Now, when you look here and you start with amphetamines and you go down the list, I want you to look what all this person had in their system. Amphetamines. They had illegal fentanyl. They had gabapentin. They had methamphetamines. That's just one person who died from an overdose, and how much is in their system. Just one example. When you go to the next page, which is another autopsy, now I want you to look at this. This is a 27-year-old person. 27 years old. I want you to read down through here and see the amount of pulmonary and cardiovascular disease that young person already has as a result of their drug abuse. That's what we're seeing heavily today. Now, folks, when we start looking at what are the costs of managing this, think about this. If we don't do something aggressively in the very near future to try to combat this, where do you think this individual is going to end up when it comes to your taxes? You're talking about somebody that's going to be on Medicaid. This is a felon. He's not going to be able to get work. You're going to be paying for his medical expenses from now on. And this is becoming more and more a reality every day of what's going to happen if this doesn't get under control. When you talk to Todd Tucker, I know everybody in here knows Todd, there's about 600 jobs in the county that can't be filled. And Todd's already talked about they can't pass a drug test. A lot of the individuals that we have out here can't pass a drug test is the reason they're not working. We've got to find ways to get them back in the system. You know, one of the things that we have asked the court system to try is the drug court. Well, what the drug court does, an individual who's only tried this as recreational use, who's not a dealer, who's not a trafficker, if we don't have a way to get them back into the system without that felony, they're going to continue on until they become this. So as we look at our future on how we manage this, that's one thing that we've got to get under control is how do we get those individuals that played with this as recreation back to productive citizens. We've got to look strongly at being able to do that. Now, the traffickers, yes. Our narcotics groups, and I'll have to brag on them, all three of our agencies right now in the county who are strong in the narcotics control, which is the Sheriff's Office, Mount Airy PD, and State SBI. They're all working really, really strong together to make all these busts. Look at everything that's been coming out in the paper. You saw that 48 some odd people that were going to be in a pickup here recently. Well, when it comes to our business, what we see is once they do that, that first week, there are no overdoses. Stops, like you turn the spigot off. But once they go for first appearance, once they take 15 charges and combine them to 2 and 3, they're back out on the street. We're selling dope again. It's so frustrating. When you talk to our narcotics groups, that's the one thing that really, really kills them is that we've worked this case, we've worked it for a year, we've got all of these names, we've got all these people that are absolutely out here pushing the drugs, but you know, until we make some changes, they're going to be back out there operational again. And what are we doing? We're just spinning our wheels. The next page that I have here in our handouts is a person who just started. Look at the difference in that autopsy. This one just devied with the drugs and it killed him. Okay, but you can absolutely see that they weren't on it for a long time. They just chose the wrong amount to take. They're not in that category of all the cardiovascular disease that's starting to happen. They're killing their heart valves, they're in pulmonary edema, all of those things. This person just got the wrong amount at the right time to take them out. Now, when we turn to the next, fentanyl and heroin right now are the two top killers that we have. Fentanyl and heroin. Heroin, for example, heroin is 100 times stronger than morphine. Fentanyl is 1,000 times stronger to 10,000 times stronger if it's considered as carfentanil, which is the most illegal illicit drug that's manufactured by most of the dealers out there. I printed out this sheet so you can walk through and you can sort of see what